Hey everybody, Dr. Angela Mulrooney here. I hope you're having an amazing evening. I'm here with the amazing Scott Alexander. I totally pointed in the right direction. Good job, me.
Congratulations.
Thanks for being here, Scott.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, this is the third time and every time gets better. So thanks for letting me be on.
My pleasure. So our big topic today is resilience. So we're going to go through a bit of our stories and what tactics we use to continue to thrive no matter what is happening economically around us, because we've both been through a few of those things with our companies, and we've both continued to thrive. So there's something that we naturally are doing, and we're trying to unpack what that is so that you can take away those tactics for yourself and build your business to be whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really kind of it goes as a major understatement to say we're in a really interesting time. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it's a little bit unusual out there. And so the reality is, I think what we're seeing with practices and what we've seen with our own businesses is things are different. And it's one of those times where we have to come up with, what do we want that new future to look like? And one of those things that's out there is you don't have the opportunity, or it's not an option to sit down and just say, I'm going to sit it out. Mm-hmm. Not to get too dire on folks, but I read a lot of news, and I think I love sort of economics, and because I'm a big fat nerd, and it's true. So what we're seeing is we're actually seeing a resurgence in the number of cases that are happening, and there's talk across North America about, hey, maybe we have to go into a second lockdown and that sort of thing. And the reality is, I don't want to paint a dire picture. If the sunny side is, we're seeing that the severity of cases is much less. But the reality is, we need to know that this is going to be a turbulent time. And I bring that up and sort of talk about the reality of it, because you don't just get to wait it out. Right? That's just not where we are. We're at a point where, as a practice owner, you need to think about what are you going to do in this time, assuming that you have bills that you need to pay, and you have staff, payroll you need to make, and how do you do it? So this conversation really came out of, Angie and I spent a lot of time talking together about, how do we help practices be successful, and just wanted to talk about resiliency and transition and what it looks like to kind of take the bull by the horns, whether you're excited to do it, or you're really kind of nervous and uncomfortable around it, and make it into what you want it to be. So.
And I find it interesting because a lot of the dentists I've talked to and the professionals who work with dentists that I've talked to, there's maybe it's survival that they're putting on their rose-colored glasses and saying everything's going to be great. Things are like busier than ever. And when we look at the facts around it, they're not. They may feel busier than ever, but production-wise, they're not. Right? Like if you're normally seeing 40 patients and you're seeing 15 now, that's not the same busyness, right? And we know that, when government assistance runs out, the bottom is going to fall out a little bit for some practices. We're going to see realistically what is happening. So those rose-colored glasses that everything is great because there's money coming in from the assistance that I can get, that is going to be, it might be a very severe reality that comes to a head for a lot of practices. And I do worry about that. We're also going to be caught up on the backlog, and we're going to see, there's lots of patients who don't want to come back. We're going to see a lot of the people who got ticked off by the practices that didn't communicate about what was going on, who are floating out. And honestly, it's around 50% from the professionals that I talk to. I've been keeping a tally, and it's frightening to me what is happening behind the scenes that a lot of dentists I feel like aren't really acknowledging. And again, not to be dire, but like this is reality, and you're going to get slapped pretty hard by reality if you don't have time to work on things. And before COVID, a lot of people were going, oh, I don't have time to work on my practice, so they're like pushing all this stuff underneath the carpet, and then oh my gosh, suddenly we have to open back up, and all the stuff that's under the carpet is still there, and now there's more. And they haven't unpacked that to figure out what they actually need to do. And come the fall, there's going to be a lot of things that have piled up that are going to hurt pretty bad if they don't start getting dealt with.
That's right. Yeah, and so the unemployment. All right, are we there? Sorry.
Yeah, try it again.
Sorry, let me start. Yeah, Missouri internet's a little bit slow sometimes. Sorry. Yeah, what I was saying is, we're going to see those payments stop sooner in the U.S. than we are in Canada,
Mhm.
and so we'll be able to see our Canadian colleagues can see what's going to happen in the U.S. first, but hands down, like we're going to see a big change. And I actually think you brought up a good point. And it's worth saying again. So 50% of patients, did I get you right? So 50% of patients are dissatisfied with their current provider based on how they handled themselves during COVID.
This is the professionals that I talked with. So these are the ones who typically afford those bigger cases and whatnot. But yeah, it's 50-50 whether they're staying with their dentist or not.
So here's how I take it. And, we were talking about it before we hit play. I'm a sunny side up kind of a guy, and also, a little eager. I drink too much coffee. You can see that either as you need to be worried about the patients that you've been serving, right? They may not be as forgiving as the average person may think they are, but there's also a tremendous opportunity to see growth in practices. And it really does depend on whether you stand still, lean back, or lean forward in terms of how you're going to move into the situation that we find ourselves in. As you think about a practice, right? Most practices, talking specifically to GPs and maybe folks who are doing some some of the other higher end services, the reality is you have to have your hygiene dialed in. Like that's the bread and butter that keeps your wheels turning. And so you need to make sure those patients are still feeling aware that you're there and that you care about them. And then you need to make sure that you've got room for some of these higher end services to be able to cover some of the production, right, from a total dollar standpoint. But at the end of the day, this is that opportunity, like we talked about last time, and I'll just reiterate, this is that opportunity to create what you want your practice to be, and use this kind of tumultuous time, this crazy, wacky time that we're living through, to make it into what you want it to be. If you want to have 3,000 patients and you want to be slamming it out with a couple of associates and going hard, great. Now's the time. 50% of patients, in other people's practices are looking for somebody else. Now's the time to do it. If instead you want to dial it back, and we've talked to a number of practices that want to dial it back, now's the time to do it, right? Focus in, really put your craft out there and hone yourself and your message to your community in a way that you maybe haven't before because you've been too busy. But you can make your practice into what you want it to be, and you're literally never going to get a better opportunity to do that than you have right now.
And I think designing your life, designing your business the way that you want it to be is a big piece of resilience, because if you're chasing what you want out of life, it makes it easier to be able to put in those extra hours to, lose a little bit of sleep over it because this is the path that you need to be going on. It's easier to take a bit more risk and maybe spend that little bit of extra money right now because you know that it's going to give you the return on investment that you need, even though it hurts right now to spend that extra money. But I think knowing where you want to go and setting yourself in that direction, having that North Star to follow, is a big piece of resilience. I know it has been for me when I've built businesses during economic crises, done it 3 times now. And I've thrived.
Stop building businesses, Angela. Stop it. You're the one. You're doing this to us.
Yeah, I'm starting to call myself. I'm a drama queen because when there's chaos and drama, I tend to thrive, not shrink back. So, but I think it really has been. Well, maybe it's because I like having to fight for things. I've got that little warrior instinct in me that game on. Let's see if I can actually make this happen. But it has always been when I've had that idea, that insight that this is what I need to do, that I can fight for it tooth and nail till I make it happen.
Yeah. So what does that look like then? So let's say that I'm a practice owner, decent practice before all this happened, but what do I do? I'm kind of floating a little bit. I know I need to do something, but I'm not sure what I would do. What kind of advice would you give to me?
I would say, if you don't have the tools, get the help that you need. Maybe it's you're talking to one of those successful colleagues that you look up to. They can mentor you. Maybe you know professionals who can help you out. Talking to your banks, finding out how they can help you out. What happens, I find, is when people get into these really stressful situations where they feel like they're going to fail, they try and hide. They don't want anyone to know because we're so proud, especially amongst healthcare professionals. We're really, really proud. We've got this lovely degree that gives us doctor in front of our name. And when things are tough, it's hard to admit it because we want to be perfect. And that's how most people get into major, major difficulty, is because they're far too gone. They're far too gone by the time they actually put their hand up and say, hey, I'm struggling here. I'm really in trouble. And then a lot of times they're in receivership. They're in a situation where, we're trying to bail water, but the ship's already 99% underwater and we can't even do anything to help at that point. So being able to set your ego aside and say, I don't know everything. I actually need someone to help give me some guidance. That's one of the things that I really do is a big part of resilience, and being able to be humble enough to ask for help.
I think you're dead on. I think about times when I've had to make career changes or talk to other folks and seeing how they do it. It really just comes down to, first of all, you got to acknowledge that you need to make a change, right? And acceptance is the first step in recovery. And so understanding you need to make a change, and then figuring out, well, what do you want it to look like? I think a lot of us, right, we all have advanced degrees. We're all very driven folks, education, and all the schooling behind that. The reality is a lot of it has been, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of it comes in as you get handed certain things, like this is what you do, and then you do step 2, and then you do step 3, and it's right, that pathway is put out for you. And I think it's very easy to just say, all right, well, this is the pathway that I'm supposed to go on. And now is that time to actually stop, kind of have your Zen moment to say, well, what do I want my life to be? And to create that. And one of the biggest things is to understand, well, what do you want it to look like? Do you want it to look like, a 2,000 patient practice where you're treating patients, 2,000 of them, you're doing a little bit of, this, a little bit of that, and that's what you want? Fantastic. If that's what you want, go and do it and be happy. But you may get in and say, look, I don't want that. I want to have a massive practice, or I want to have a small boutique practice, or I don't want to practice at all. Right? I mean, the great thing about having been a practice owner is you have such flexibility in terms of creating your reality. And so spending the time doing that, I think, goes a long way. And talking to folks about what is it like? What is it like to to have a boutique practice? What's it like to have a really busy one? What is it like to not be practicing dentistry but be involved in the industry side of things? What does that look like? I will tell you, because I went through this, right? So I was a hot shot at some big medical companies and loved every minute of it. But I got to a point where I said, you know what? I'm getting ready to turn. I was getting ready to turn 40, and I thought, do I want to be? I was running innovation at the Mercy Health System in the Midwest of the U.S., and I love the organization, love it to death. But I just sat there and said, hey, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to continue to work in large organizations, or do I want to try and strike out and kind of bring my own personal mission to bear? And so I had the luxury of time, but I probably talked to 50 different people to understand, well, what's it like to go out and do it on your own, and what's it like to to do this and that and the other thing. And I got a really clear picture, and obviously I made a decision, and I think it's the right decision. But having that opportunity, I mean, literally anybody who's watching this will never have a better opportunity to do this. And the reality is, people will talk to you. If you want to know what it's like to run a digital marketing practice that serves dental practices, give me a call. I'm happy to walk you through what that looks like, right? If you want to talk to what it's like in the industry, reach out. LinkedIn's a great platform, but get a clear picture and then execute to it. And the execution is a lot easier than people think. But if you don't get the vision right, then the execution really isn't going to work for you.
Yeah, and I find when people are trying to make a decision, especially a massive decision, I don't know if you get called by a lot of people who are looking to pivot their world, but I don't know if it's because they see that I did that and they're like, how did you get out of dentistry? And I'm like, I got broken. So that's what
Yeah.
happened. But a lot of times they're asking me what I should do. And what I often hear is that word should. Everyone's telling me I shouldn't leave dentistry, or I should do this, or I should do that. And so they've got all these little voices talking around their heads. And what I find is if you talk to people who have been there and done that, they're not going to should you.
Mhm.
They're going to go, this is what I went through. These were the pros, the cons, the pathway that opened up for me to make this happen. It's probably not actually going to be the same path for you, and you need to figure out what is going to work well for you. And they're not going to should you to death, which when people tell us we should do something, I don't know about you, but I'm like, bleh, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to do the opposite, even though there might be some good advice behind it,
Mhm.
but oftentimes it's coming from an inexperienced source
Mhm.
in what I'm trying to do. And so I find, if you are trying to make that decision, whether it's, you're taking your practice and you want to steer it to boutique, or you want to steer it to world domination, or whatever you want it to be. Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, good tag in there. Yeah.
But you have the ability, like if you talk to people who have done it, they're going to give you way more solid advice than your friends and family who are just trying to observe the situation and say, oh, well, you should do this because you seem really good at that. And, all that extra input can be really confusing and oftentimes directs you in the wrong way. And if they're people that you respect, you start to think, well, maybe I should do that because they know me so well. Even though in your gut, you're going, blah, I'd never want to do that in a million years, but maybe I should.
Yeah. It's you bring up sort of friends and family, and I want to echo that because oftentimes when you go to friends and family and you ask for advice, their opinion is, or their advice is going to be jaded by the fact that they want to protect you from scary things.
Yeah.
Right. And change is scary. And so you may get advice of like, don't do it. Right. Don't go out on a limb from people that you love and trust, not because it's not a good idea, but because it's scary. And your mom, father, your dad, mother, brothers, best friend, whatever the case might be, they want to protect you from harm, not let you kind of walk out into a scary place. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you need to weigh those things. You need to listen to the both sides of the conversation. But at the end of the day, you got to make the decision that you're going to be satisfied with as you go through it. And just know that advice is that, and they're not the ones. What's the analogy? Have you heard? So a pig and a chicken.
I don't think I've heard this one.
Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Little backcountry advice. So a pig and a chicken decided they wanted to make breakfast for this farmer, and so the chicken came up to the pig and said, "Hey, I want to make breakfast for Farmer Brown." And the pig said, "No way." And the chicken goes, "Why not? I'm willing to do some of the work too. Like, we're going to make breakfast for the farmer." And the pig said, "Look, when it comes to making breakfast for the farmer, you're involved, but I'm committed, right? So you're going to make some eggs, but I'm the bacon." And it's that sort of thing. We need to make sure that we're ultimately we're the pigs, right? We're going to be committed to what we are going to do. So, and our friends, our family, our guy, all the people are going to give you advice. They're the chickens. They're going to be involved, but they're not committed. So bear that in mind and know that ultimately the decision is yours. I hope that was a good analogy. I don't know, but
Well, there's a little pig and a little chicken having a
right. Very serious business professionals.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to bear in mind is the people are going to give you advice are going to be involved but not committed, and so you have to make the decision that's right for you. And whether that's going out on a limb or it's staying where you are, you're committed. So you need to make sure you're making the right decision for yourself.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone has heard, change is difficult. And making a major life pivot, not just changing slightly how you do something in your day-to-day business, they're completely different things. And to chase your dreams and say, you know what, maybe I don't want to be practicing here anymore. Maybe I want to go and practice in a different city and live an amazing life there. And, I want to go from all the chaos to maybe having a boutique practice, whatever it is. It takes courage to go from what is comfortable and familiar to be able to step into living your best life and living what your dream is, that, maybe you had time during COVID to realize that, yeah, this is not what I should be doing with my life. COVID has made me wake up and realize, I want to spend time with my family, or I want to retire early and be able to live somewhere amazing. There's lots of different realizations that people have had, and I can bet probably 75% of them, probably less, or probably more than that, are not going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're going to go back to comfort.
And at the end of the day, we live in some great countries where you do have the ability to go out, try something, and if it doesn't work out, you can always go back. That's one of the wonderful things about dentistry is there will always be demand for dentists. As long as there are teeth, there will be dentists. So it may sting, it may be uncomfortable, you may have to eat a little humble pie if it doesn't work out, but at the end of the day, is that worth it? Right? And some people say no, and a lot of people, some people say yes, but you just got to know that you got to commit, right? You're going to be committed to the life that you're making, and you don't get to thank or blame anybody other than yourself for the decisions that you make.
And once you make that commitment too, you have to get the right people pushing you up the mountain. In dental practice, in my businesses, when we've gone into economic crisis, I've had my team members grab onto me and try and pull me back down the mountain because they're scared, and they're like, we got to stay comfortable where we are. Don't move so fast, don't invest so much, and all this. And when that happens, unfortunately, I've had to go, hey, you're not a fit for the culture of where I'm going with this. And I've had to restack the deck with a new team, which is pretty scary to do. To decide to, sometimes I've had to completely clean house and start from scratch and just hope that I'm making the right decision. But I think, especially for entrepreneurs, our instincts are usually pretty good. And if your alarm bell is going off that you should not be doing something, or you feel like this is the right path, you're probably right with whatever those are. And of course, you can ask your mentors, you can ask those people who've done it before and just say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is the information that's making me feel that way. Am I reading this right?
Yep.
That's all fine and good, but you still have to put your own decision making into that and realize what is right for you based on the situation, because you've had a different history that has informed you to make this decision now. And when you're making big decisions, we always want to have everyone go yeah, you should totally do that, but it's not always going to be so.
It's not. I mean, it's the reality is there's always doubt, and that's just a part of what it is to own a business, whether it's a dental practice or it's a marketing firm or it's a shoe shop. There's always doubt about, are you making the right decisions? And you just have to make your decision and go with it. You mentioned team. So there are two things that you brought up that I thought were really interesting that we should talk about. So number one is team, because you and I have both gone through some pretty significant team transitions over the past, at least for me, it's been over the course of the past 15 months. And I think it's worth talking about the sort of what it is to have a team. And here's kind of where I'm coming from is, as you think about building a team, I was watching a little snippet on the Chicago Bulls, right? One of the best basketball teams ever, right? The Last Dance is big on ESPN because there's no sports right now, and I'm really kind of sad about that. But here's the reality: is that team is different than the Chicago Bulls that we have today, and it happens because people's skills get better, people's skills go down. People aren't in the right roles anymore, and so I think it's important to think about the fact that really what you're doing as a business leader, whether you're running a practice, you're in a support industry, whatever the case might be, is you're trying to find who's the right people for now. And the right people for now oftentimes are the right people from yesterday, because they have the experience and the knowledge and you have the trust and that sort of thing, but they very well may not be the right people for now. And we've had some employees that we've been working. We're with iVelocity for quite some time, and wonderful people. But we got to a point where we realized that they're just not really doing their role the way that we need them to do, and it just wasn't a good fit. And the reality is, if you flip the coin, too many times we find, and this is particularly true in these big pivots we have to make, but we find that we want to hold on to them because Sally has been with us for so long, and she's just a wonderful person. Here's the reality: she's unhappy in her job, right? If she's not doing a good job, and she used to be doing fantastic, and now she's not in a good place, not a good headspace. And so I personally think it's doing someone a disservice to keep them in a role that's going to grow increasingly frustrating to them just because you don't want to have a difficult conversation. Right? There's a lot of humanity that you can have and a lot of dignity that you can share with somebody about, hey, look, Sally, this isn't a good fit. Let's help find you a good fit, right? Let's take some time. Let's make sure you get to the right spot. Maybe it's maybe it's in this organization or maybe it's in another one, but let's have that kind of a conversation. Those are the kinds of things that you can do to do right by people. Right? It doesn't have to be that choosing to change your team needs to be that a shot at the people that aren't right for today or right for what, more importantly, what tomorrow is going to look like. It's about understanding, are they going to be in the right spot? Are they going to be satisfied? And as a leader, am I putting them in a place where I'm building them up, or am I putting them in a place where they're going to be frustrated, angry, and ultimately we're going to have a more difficult, more frustrating conversation down the road? So that's, I think that's really important for folks to hear, because it's easy, right? Sally's been with us for 20 years, right? But the reality is that if she's not the right person for what the next 20 years look like, as you decide what the future is going to be, you need to be able to have those compassionate discussions around how can we make sure that we get you, Sally, to the right place, and we get the right person on the bus to take care of us where we're going.
Yes, very good point. And I find a lot of people who have really found their passion in life, a lot of times that inciting incident for them to find their passion was, I thought it was the worst thing that could have happened, but I got fired from my job and I had to find a way to survive. And I decided, this was a great opportunity to find a new direction. And so I'm actually thankful for getting let go from that job. And I think, honestly, as employers, we feel really responsible for people's livelihoods. And fair, we should, but they also need to feel responsible for their livelihoods.
Yeah.
So if they're not doing what they need to be doing to thrive in the company, and they've had a shift in their perspective in what they want out of life, what they want out of their career, most of the times employees are not going to volunteer and go, hey, I quit, peace out.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is they're going to hang on and just be like, oh, I shouldn't do this, right? Because there is that security in staying where you are.
Yep.
And for the employers, it's scary to let people go too, because you never know what's really going to happen, right? It's like breaking up with a girlfriend or boyfriend. That's when you find out what people are really made of. And sometimes it's good stuff, sometimes it's not so good stuff. But we have to, I don't think it's fair actually to coddle someone and keep them on when things aren't working out, because you're holding them back from finding what they should really be doing. And maybe they are a single mom and they've got a kid to feed, and so you feel responsible for that. But if they can actually find their passion, they're going to thrive so much better in life than in your company, where they are resentful coming in and they're stressed and they're anxious every time they have to come into the business because it's not the right fit for them.
Absolutely. We talk about at iVelocity when we're talking about what career trajectories look like and that sort of thing, we talk about organizational fit and personal interest. So we know that if we have people who are at that intersection of organizational need, so what does the organization need to best serve our clients, and personal interest, what's going to get you fired up, when you have that, like, magic happens. It's incredible. We've all seen those people that are like, they love what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so that's what, as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, as a practice owner, whatever bucket you put yourself in, that's what you're responsible for doing. And if you find it, as you're making these kinds of transitions, you have people that aren't, like, the two lines will never intersect. You need to do right by the individuals and by the organization to make sure that you help that person find the spot that's going to get them on fire. And if it's in the role, or it's in the organization, fantastic. But if not, you're doing them a disservice by dragging it out and leading to what could ultimately end up being a big frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been a reference for people that we let go from organizations before, because I loved what they did. I knew that they were right, but it just wasn't a good fit. And I think we have a lot of folks that are watching right now that probably need to think about that as the next way they're going to help some of their team members through their next careers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we have actually a question here. Sorry, Condra, I'm answering this a little bit late, but she said, do you think this is a bad time to start a dental practice in the midst of the pandemic? Is it the right time for you? Is my question back to you. Is this something that your gut is telling you that it's the right thing to do for you? Because if it's the right thing, you're going to find a way to make it happen, right? And we know, as we talked about earlier in the broadcast, we know there's probably like 50% of patients are floating around looking for a new dentist. And if you happen to be that right fit for them, you're the right personality, you have the right facility, you have the right services, I think you can build a practice. You're going to probably need some help. You're going to need some input from business coaches. You're going to need some marketing help. You're going to need the right accountants, lawyers, all that surrounding you to advise you to not make mistakes, but make as few mistakes as possible during this. But I think it's entirely possible. Like, I have a lot of coaching clients who are entrepreneurs who are stepping out of their regular role and moving in a completely new direction during COVID. And I congratulate them because I think they're being extremely courageous, and I don't think they're being foolish. So I'm not saying you're being courageous out of feeling like they're being foolish and taking way too big of a risk, but compared to the majority of people out there, majority of people right now are saying, oh, I wish I was doing something different with my life, or could actually change the path of where I'm going, just adjust it slightly. And majority are not going to be brave enough to actually do it. So I think if it is the right time for you, if you feel like life is aligned right now for you to find that perfect spot and open up your practice, I just say get the right advice moving into it, and trust your gut. Like, really trust your gut.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't tell somebody not to. Mm-hmm. And so 50% of patients are open to a change, right? And so tremendous opportunity there. I think if you look at some of the best companies in the world, right? The Microsofts of the world, Uber, I think maybe Google, like, they all came out of recessions or major economic downturns. Mm-hmm. And it's because you kind of have that time and that freedom to do it. So yeah, this is a great time to do it. And the thing that you'll get is you'll be scrappy, right? You have to be, and talking to the queen of scrappy, right? So like we're going to be scrappy, and it's fantastic because you get to figure out, like, what do you really need to do and how do you want to do it and how do you want it to be you, right? That's and I think that's advice that you've given over and over again, Ange, is like, this is the time to do that. This is the time to make it be your practice. It's more difficult to stand apart and to have your unique message in the world when times are good and everything's fairly commoditized. Mm-hmm. People are looking for different, are looking for unique, they're looking for safety, and they're looking for somebody to build a relationship with them. And if this is your passion, you want to do it, man, go get them, because you're never going to have a better opportunity to go out there. And and who knows? I mean, again, you're able to build rapport and you're able to kind of do things differently. Maybe you get into, have a big push in teledentistry in an area that has not had that, and you can see, you can pick up a lot of patients and serve a lot of people that way. Right, just as an example. So now's the time to do it because you can try things differently than you would have been able to, say, a year ago.
Yes. And the people who have been successful in the past, because of the times and everything else, a lot of them are going to have a hard time really trying to adjust and do things differently, because they're like, well, this formula has worked for the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so they've had it ingrained in them that is the right action to take. So trying to stop that momentum and halt and now change direction is much harder than when you're starting from scratch. And honestly, I love the example of the teledentistry, because you can be doing a lot of teledentistry right now, building up that rapport for your practice that you'll be able to capitalize on when you are open.
Absolutely. I was on a call with an orthodontist down in California earlier today, and I got to tell you, like, super impressive practice. And one of the things that the orthodontist, what she said to me was, we want to be on the front end of what we're doing. And so in this time when they're like, again, they could be battening down the hatches and trying to wait for the storm to end. She's not. She's leaning into it and is saying, like, what are we going to do to reinvent ourselves again and again and again? And I have to tell you, I would, if I could put, bet on her being successful, I'd put every dollar I have. There's no question in my mind. She's going to be super successful. You throw global pandemic at her, you throw super good economic time, whatever, she's going to be successful. And it's that passion and that drive and the willingness to lean in that ultimately is going to guarantee that she's going to be successful. That's just point blank. So lean in. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't kind of half-heartedly go after it. You should make sure that you really going to make it happen.
Yeah, and those ultimate success stories that come out of these struggles are the ones who went, okay, I know everyone else is going to be pulling back and being fearful and whatnot. I'm just going to drive forward no matter what is happening. Those are the ones who are going to definitely come out of this stronger. And if you have to start during a time like this, that scrappiness is never going to leave you.
Yeah.
That scrappiness is going to serve you so well through the rest of your career.
Such a good skill. Yeah. I'll actually share. So we started talking about starting new practices. We started a new arm to what we're doing during COVID. So, So a significant percentage of the clients that we serve are dental practices. And when y'all shut down, we had to shut down. And it was one of those things. It's like, well, what do you do? Do we wait it out or do we lean into it? And the reality is we lean into it. And as a result, so my background, I worked for Medtronic, which is a big medical device company, and then the Mercy Health System. And I've always seen this issue with driving adoption of innovative medical, dental, and healthcare products. And so we said, look, we have all these tools that we use for practices. We're going to use them for manufacturers and help people that have a hard time getting their voice heard. And I tell you what, and you and I have had this conversation, like it's growing like gangbusters. I mean, the demand is there. People love it. And if we hadn't had this, I guarantee we wouldn't have done it. We talked about doing this a year ago and just didn't happen because we were so busy. And it's this kind of hard reset that has caused us to do this. And it's been fantastic. And frankly, has energized the team in a way that as a leader, I love doing. I love seeing people say, look, we're super excited to come in, and we have these other kind of cool projects we get to work on now too. So it's been great for us.
So let me ask you this, Scott.
Yeah.
When something like COVID happens, and it looks like you've just like run smack into a brick wall, and you're not going to be able to pound your way through the brick wall. How do you perceive that barrier?
How do I perceive it? Usually from about this far away, if I hit the wall. No. I got bad jokes. There's not a lot of bad that happens in this world if you look at it from the right angle. And if there are people who are hungry and we're just gonna figure it out, and I like to consider myself in that bucket. So like COVID hit and March, I will never forget March 16th, 2020, because we probably had 30 of our practices that we've been working with for a while call and say, hey, look, we gotta stop everything. And that's a real uh-oh moment when you have, a significant percentage of your practices all go on pause. Because we have 18 employees, They have families. I have a lot of responsibility for that. It sucks. And so you kind of wallow in it for a little bit of time, but you realize, like, what are you going to do? Keep punching, right? You just got to you got to figure out how to get around it. And every threat, again, this kind of cliche, but like the Chinese, crisis equals opportunity, the characters and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's how you have to look at it. You have to look at, okay, now we have the opportunity to figure out how we're gonna serve the people that we want to serve, right? We're a mission-driven, values-driven organization, so we know who we're serving and how we're gonna serve them. We just have to figure out a different way to do it, and wonderful things come from that. So, you can't let yourself get down too much. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think the same thing. And when I look at what's happened just overall since COVID hit, how many companies pivoted to do different things, right? There was
Yeah.
companies that completely got shut down. One example in Canada was there was like I can't remember, I think might have been Bauer, the hockey helmet company. They decided, well, we can't, like, no one's going to be buying hockey helmets right now, so let's change it to making visors for the healthcare industry, right? The Mint actually shut down and started helping to make hand sanitizer in Canada.
Yeah.
And so all these companies got really, really, they saw the opportunity, right? Not only to thrive, but also to make a difference. And I think when you can find that ability to contribute to the good of the world, whether it's just flat out putting out goodwill or creating that innovation to be able to help more people, that's where you no longer see that barrier. You're like, okay, yeah, this hit the brick wall. It kind of hurt a little bit, but what can I actually do to climb that brick wall and also pull everyone else up with me as I'm climbing that wall to make the world a better place?
Absolutely. And in times of crisis, people look for a leader, right? And so it's this opportunity to like, you see something bad happen, it's about leaning in and realizing I got to figure out a solution for this, right? And so, everybody who's watching this right now is intelligent, is a very capable individual, probably very handsome, right? Maybe good with jokes. Like, you've got a lot of talents, people. And so, how do you use this as the opportunity? And it's about understanding that nobody really knows what's going on, and so now you can kind of lean in and create this. I see too many people limiting themselves and being afraid. I mean, Bauer making face shields instead of hockey helmets, that's a genius idea, right? And the reality is, we're probably not manufacturing hockey equipment, but we have similar things that we can do in our own practices, in our own communities, to think about what does that look like, and not being limiting, right? We had a number of practices that actually got into COVID testing because they were like, well, I can't do anything, so I can get a connection with LabCorp and I can do this, and we can actually do some COVID testing. And so, yeah, it's that sort of scrappiness that I think helps make practices successful.
Absolutely. We have a question here too. What if your office manager is very particular with their job, does a great job, and wants help? Problem is, we've gone through 3 new receptionists in the past year, and they never want to stay and work with her. I, as the owner dentist, do not know if it's wrong fit of hires or it's the office manager that drives them away.
I have a very strong opinion on this one.
Yeah, you go first. It's probably the same opinion as mine.
Yeah. So I won't use the link because we're, this is a children's show. I'm not a family show. Like, I'm not going to say what I would normally say, but there's a rule called the no jerk rule. And the no jerk rule is don't work with jerks. So the reality is, if you have 3 people, if you've vetted 3 people through the entire hiring process, and they came in did they say in a year?
Past year, yeah. 3 new receptionists.
Year. You have 3 separate individuals come in and have a hard time with the practice manager. The problem's the practice manager.
Yep. Agreed.
And no questions asked. And that's that organizational fit and personal fit and organizational need. Like, you got the wrong person on the seat. And all right, so we had some individuals on my team that were very capable people over the past year, and wonderful human beings, right? Good at their jobs or previously, but they were the wrong fit. And I stressed about some of these turnovers, much like you would with a practice manager. I mean, these were folks that would be equivalent to that, to that role with me. And I lost sleep over it, and it, got ulcer kind of stuff. And I let him go. And it was like Christmas. I mean, just a breath of fresh air. The reality is you don't understand, you don't appreciate how much stress and strain you have trying to figure out how do I make sure that Sally doesn't get mad. And if she's running off receptionist, she's probably giving you a hard time. She's probably not great to the patients, right? But it's one of those things, you're just used to it. You got the wrong person, and you need to do something about it.
Yeah. What I usually tell people is just close your eyes and imagine if Sally wasn't there anymore. What would life be like? And usually they go, oh, yeah, it would be a very different story. And they have that realization in that moment. And then over the next week, they can't help but see those problems that Sally is creating. And suddenly then there's no other choice but to let Sally go. And, if Sally's been there for a long time, it can be expensive to let that person go. But that breath of fresh air, when that person is gone, everyone lets up. It's a big deal. On my team, I've gone through phases where everyone is great together, and then we suddenly add in a new team member and the dynamic suddenly shifts. And it was because someone who was already on the team doesn't like how the things grew, and they start poisoning the well with the other team. And they were amazing before, but suddenly that chemistry with the other team members doesn't work, and the rest of the other team members are amazing. You have to take that person out because you're going to lose everybody if you don't actually take care of that one problem.
Oh, amen. I mean, it's so this individual, they get rid of their practice manager. What they're going to find is other people on the team will step up. Yeah. And in fact, again, because this is close to my heart, I've had to do this. I've had this decision several times over the past year where I had key people that are really, they're good at their job, or they had been good at their job, and I just realized in the direction we're moving, this is not a good fit. And each time I did that, what I found was you had different people stepping up, people that you didn't necessarily think were going to, and it was always net positive. So yeah, there's no question about it. Yeah.
That's interesting because I've owned a business, I've had 4 different businesses in the past 11 years, right? And so lots of employees had to deal with them in the dental industry, in just pure business. And it is the first time I had to let someone go, I was just sick about it for months, thinking that I had to let them go. And the next time I had to let someone else go, I was sick about it too. And then probably about 3 years into ownership, then this is first, from being the first time ever being an owner into 3 years, then you start to go, you know what? I've seen this rodeo before. I know, this person is like that person. And so I know if I remove that person, then it's going to be like when I remove that other person. And you start to recognize that pattern. But if this is the first time you're going through it and it's going to feel awkward, it's going to feel very clumsy, and it is what it is, though, because you have to take care of the practice. The practice has to thrive because that's what's on the line for you, right? Yes, you want to take really good care of the employees and you want to keep as many people around as you possibly can, but you do have to make sure that you've got the right people helping to move that practice up. If you got anyone else grabbing the practice and dragging it down the mountain, it's not going to work in the long term, and it's just going to cause more stress than it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 reasons why you would keep an underperforming employee. And when I describe underperforming, I don't mean the ability to do their job. I mean their ability to raise the team. Right. So Newt Rockne is a famous college football coach for Notre Dame, and he said, "I don't play my best 11. Right. I don't play my 11 best. I play my best 11. So I don't play the people that are the best in their positions. I have to worry about how the chemistry plays so that we're going to win the game." And as a practice owner, that's how you have to think about it, is I have to play the people that have the best interactions. So if you're not doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice, or you're doing your patients a disservice. There's 2 reasons why you won't do this. Number one is the change is too scary, right? And let me let you in on a secret. Like it's going to be scary, but you're going to survive, right? That's just the reality. I mean, there are plenty of people who are very, very talented practice managers who could come in and things would be a little different, maybe a little bumpy, but you could make that change. So that's number one. And then, and a lot of people won't do that, right? Because you don't want to upset the apple cart. You don't want to hurt the team. You don't want to hurt your patients. Well, let me, again, I'm being really direct right now. So it comes from a place of love. The reality is that individual is not so critical to your practice that you can't get the right person on the bus. And you're doing yourself, your team, and your patients a disservice by keeping somebody who's employed that's not helping you. That's net negative. That's number one. And then number two is you feel like you owe it to that individual. And right, that's something I struggle with, right? Because I really care about my team and have this deep passion for organization, like personal development and sort of building a team of people and really kind of pouring into them. But the reality is, I'm not their sufficiency. You're not their sufficiency. The reality is, if you make a change there, they will be fine. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for us as type A, practice owners to swallow. But like, you're not their sufficiency. There's another one that actually takes care of them, and they can find another job and will be just fine. So you need to make that call.
Yes. And part of resiliency is making those hard decisions under stress.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing that, okay, everyone else is going to look at this and think that I'm being a big meanie or I'm making the wrong decision, but I know it's the right decision and making the decision anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a mentor of mine one time, and I was having this kind of difficult decision about like, how do I do? And, how do I make this decision? And he looked at me in the eye and said, Scott, let me tell you, you're going to make the wrong decision. Doesn't matter what you do. You pick A, you pick B, you pick apples or oranges. It doesn't matter. You're going to make the wrong decision in somebody's eyes. Guaranteed, 100% guaranteed. At the end of the day, you need to do what you think is right. Mm-hmm. And you've got to live with it. And you need to know there are always people who are going to second guess you. And you need to know that there are always going to be people who thought you did a great job. None of that matters. What matters is that you, in your heart of hearts, know that you did with the information you had at hand, that you did the right decision, mm-hmm. and that you moved the ball forward towards the goals that you've set forward. And I feel like that's where we all are. Is you're no matter what you do, somebody's going to second guess you. But the reality is, you got to make the right decision for what you believe is right in your gut.
Yeah. And I think when times are tough and when we're in uncertain times, and we've had since 2008. Well, we've had the global financial crisis in lots of different states and provinces. The oil crisis was had a huge effect, and then now we've got COVID. And when this stuff is happening, like, you can't expect to have all the information to make the perfect decision. Mm-hmm. And if you're type A, and most entrepreneurs are, you want to make that perfect decision, and that can be paralyzing as well. Because you don't want to misstep. You don't want to make a fool of yourself and have to backpedal and say, sorry, I made a mistake and I'm actually going to go in this direction. Mm-hmm. But if you are operating from a good place and you are making the best decision with the best information that you have, and you're gathering data to make sure that you are as well informed on the decision as possible, and you're just honest and you speak from the heart about that stuff, you're gonna win. Mm-hmm. And if you're honest in that moment and you decide, well, now this is new information is here and that wasn't quite right, and you can fess up to that wasn't quite right, but now that I know this information, now I'm going to make an even better decision. That is something that will garner huge respect from your team. It'll garner huge respect from your clients. There's really no way to go wrong, even if you made a mistake, because that information was the best at the time, but now we know that information was wrong. And, like in the healthcare industry right now with COVID, there's people who are like, oh, it's a conspiracy. And there's other people who are like, we're all going to die. And then there's people in between. And the thing is, we don't know who's going to be right. Yeah. We're going to know in a year, maybe 2 years, who is right. And so it is paralyzing for a lot of people to make decisions at all. But it's like, well, okay, as I said, like, make the best decision with what you got right now. And then when that new information comes out and proves that wrong, it's okay to pivot and say, I fessed up. I own that was a mistake. and I'm operating with the best intentions. I'm doing the best I possibly can with the information that we've got. And that is leadership personified, really. Yeah, and yeah, the people who step up and they're brave enough to take that chance. That's a big, yeah, it says a lot about an entrepreneur, especially in uncertain times.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think so. There's a framework that was developed, came out of Stanford, called design thinking. So this is what like IDEO that built the mouse and the Swiffer came from, that sort of thing. And so the whole concept is, and if you want to learn more about design thinking and all this, let me know. I love this stuff. So it's all about how quickly can you make decisions and how can you have strong opinions loosely held. So if you're going to pivot your practice, right, the first thing you do is you start making decisions about what information you have, how do you understand where the opportunities are, that sort of thing, and in an hour, make a change that can help you move in the right direction. And then if it goes well, make another decision. Again, short little learning curves where you're trying to figure out what this looks like. And what you do is you end up iterating yourself into what you actually want this to be. When faced with a lot of uncertainty like we have here, again, like we don't know what's going to happen. Being able to make short, quick decisions, reevaluating on a regular basis, and then pivoting really small ones, really small decisions, that's what's going to help you be successful and keep you from making like big, massive changes. Right? Big mistakes. Take small steps, right? Commit, you're going to go in this direction, but you don't know the right answer yet. So you got to figure out what it looks like through these small incremental steps. And that's how you end up in really interesting places that satisfy you personally and serve the community as well.
Agreed. And once you choose that direction, don't be ignorant about it. Like, make sure you're still keeping up with the information that's feeding that decision so that you're not suddenly caught off guard and you're like, whoa, I'm totally out in left field and I didn't even see it coming. Because if you make those little decisions with the information that's coming at you, you'll be able to, exactly what you said, be able to adjust much more quickly.
It's not the, like, if you look at these companies that are really successful and that pivot. So I'm really kind of bringing some nerd in today. So as we think about a little case study for you, IBM almost went out of business in the 1990s because they were making mainframes, and then personal computers came out and was cleaned their clock. And so the reality is they had to make a switch much more daunting switch than we have to. And the reality is the way they did it was they looked at the data, they made some decisions, they started making change, they checked back, and it's this like quick loop that keeps them from being Polaroid, right? Who didn't make the change, right? So it's all about what's the information today and how do you make small decisions to pivot into where you want to go. And then when you end up doing that, that's how you get, each day you're not making that big of a difference or that big of a change. But over the course of a year, you're radically transforming your practice, right? You're becoming that, dedicated sleep practice that you've always wanted to be, or you're adding other services outside of core dentistry that you really want to do, or you're getting out of dentistry altogether. Like that's how you go about doing it. And each individual step allows you to commit further into what you want your future to be.
Agreed. So take little steps, people. That's what we're telling you to do.
Little steps. Make a decision, little steps. Make sure you're looking around. Talk to people, but know that ultimately it's your gut that has to guide you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Was there anything else we want to add before we head out?
No, just I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish everybody really well. Right, like we talked about, these are kind of uncertain times, and great things come out of very difficult times like this. And so I would just encourage everybody watching, listening, to just know that this is probably, while it's like a roller coaster or a theme park, right? It's going to be scary, but man, it can be a lot of fun. And so take some time to think about what you really want your practice to be, what you really want your career to be, and then commit and go and do it. And you'll never have another opportunity to make your reality into what you want it to be like you do right now. So that's what I have to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott and I are both people who love to talk to people. So if you're feeling like you're on the precipice of making a big decision and you need people to bounce ideas off of, we're very happy to talk to you. So you can get a hold of me at angela@unleashinginfluence.com.
Yep.
And Scott, I'm going to say yours wrong. I might be close, but I'll let you say yours.
Sure. So it's Scott, SCOTT, at ivelocitymarketing.com. So and if you send it to me and it bounces back, then hit up Ange. She'll send it to me.
Yeah,
we talk every day. So did we want to talk about the Practice Restart program?
Yeah, we might as well. We finally got ourselves figured out with it. So we eliminated the middle child of it and just decided we have Scott's instant gratification program, and then we have combined with that the world domination program. So it is officially launched. And as we said before, it is an at-cost program. Like seriously, we are both doing this at cost to help make sure that dentists make it through 2020 and can actually rocket through 2021. So I'll get you to, oops, I'm pointing the wrong way. I'll get you to go over the instant gratification one more time, and then I'll do world domination.
Sure. So like Angela said, we have two packages. Instant gratification it's about winning now. You want to see patients in the door. And so basically we have a package that will bring, I just lost my light, hygiene and emergency dentistry patients into your practice. So we'll do that, as well as offering some coaching on the phone about how do we make sure that your front desk is really dialed in so that you get those patients who are interested in the practice as quickly as possible. And what about world domination? Tell me about that.
Then world domination includes everything that Scott just talked about. Plus you get the long-term solution, which is the organic social media for building up your credibility. So with that one, you're also going to get weekly marketing content coaching sessions with Scott and I, which is so much fun. So we'll help you to make sure that you're developing really good content for what we're going to be putting out there for you. And with the social media side of it, my team and I take everything, we craft that content. We just need you to provide us with the content, and then we'll make magic with it and make sure it's posted on your profile. So between the two programs, with the instant gratification mixed with world domination, it is a robust program that is going to give you the success that you are seeking. And as we talked about in the beginning, there's a lot of people out there, 50% are looking for new dentists right now, and the instant gratification part of it, grabbing those people who are floating around and marketing to them to get those quick wins, as well as keeping their interest with the world domination side of it with the organic social media, is really, from what we're seeing and what we believe in, is the way to go to really make it through what we're going through right now with the pandemic.
Absolutely. So if you want to learn more, go to practicerestart.com, all one word, or practicerestart.ca, and schedule some time. As you know, there's a bit of a competition in here as well. So if you have the opportunity to pick between and Scott Alexander, know that I will tell good jokes on our conversation, and my knowledge is deep when it comes to I don't know, something else that Angela can't provide. So come schedule with me. If my calendar is completely full, then you can schedule with Dr. Angela Mulrooney. But otherwise, look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, call Angela. Don't call Scott. Angela wants to win. World domination, people.
I love it.
Yeah. So on that note, we will say good night, but thank you for joining us for this. This is the last of our series, but we are going to be starting a new series. So stay tuned for advertisements on that, where Scott and I are going to be having regular marketing conversations that are going to help keep you enlightened enlightened and moving in the right direction with what you need to think about with your practices and also with businesses, because it will be very entrepreneurial, not just dentist driven. So we look forward to joining you again then.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.